I watched Marcus stand in front of the entire office staff with a clipboard in his hands, and my stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to have any authority. Yet there he stood, in his crisp marine dress blues, reading off a list of names with the kind of cold precision that made people sit up straighter in their chairs. Effective immediately, I'm taking operational control of this office for the next 30 days, he announced, his jaw tight. Everything changes today. That was 3 weeks ago. Now I'm sitting at my desk, staring at my inbox, watching everything I built burn to the ground. Let me back up. My name is Jennifer, and I'm the office manager at Ashton & Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm in suburban Denver. I've been here for 8 years. 8 good years. I know every client, every project timeline, every employee's coffee order. The office runs smoothly because I make it run smoothly. That's not arrogance, that's just fact. I get to work at 7:15 every morning. I stay until at least 5:30, and I've skipped exactly 3 lunch breaks in the past year. My boss, Derek, trusts me completely. Or at least, he did. My life was good. Really good. I have a condo in a nice neighborhood, a car that's paid off, and a savings account that actually has 6 figures in it. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm comfortable. I go to yoga on Wednesday nights. I have dinner with my sister Lisa every other Sunday, and I've been dating Brandon for 2 years. Steady, kind Brandon, who works in software development and who actually listens when I talk. We're thinking about moving in together next year. Everything felt stable. Everything felt earned. The office itself is in a modern building on South Santa Fe Drive. We occupy the 3rd floor. Open concept, lots of natural light, a break room that actually has good coffee because I insisted on buying an expensive machine. The walls are soft gray, the desks are white oak, and the whole place smells like possibility. I'm proud of it. I designed the layout. I interviewed half the staff. I set the tone. There are 23 people who work here. I know all of them. I know that Monica in graphic design is going through a rough divorce and that her mom's been helping with her 2 kids. I know that James in accounts is training for a marathon. I know that Sarah, one of our junior copywriters, struggles with anxiety and that she appreciates when I check in with her on Mondays. I've built real relationships here, not just professional ones. That matters to me. Derek is the owner. He's 58, always wears expensive watches, and he trusts his team to do their jobs. He's been good to me. Generous bonuses, flexibility when I needed to take time off for my dad's surgery last year. He travels constantly, always chasing the next big client. He's been in Cabo for the last 3 weeks, actually. That's important. Brandon came over last Sunday like he always does. We ordered Thai food from the place on Evans, the one with the incredible pad Thai, and we sat on my couch watching some documentary about space exploration. His arm was around me and everything felt right. He was talking about a project at work, something technical about cloud infrastructure that I didn't fully understand, but I loved listening to him talk about things he cares about. His voice gets this excited quality, like he's sharing the most important secret in the world. "You okay?" he asked at one point, turning to look at me. "You seem distracted." "Just work stuff," I said. "Derek's been pushing me to handle more client relations directly. He wants to expand my role." "That's good though, right? More responsibility?" Yeah, it's good." I smiled at him, and I meant it. I was excited about it. Derek had mentioned that he was considering me for a director position if the firm continued to grow. Director of Operations. I could actually see it happening. I could see myself in that role. Brandon kissed the top of my head. "You're going to be amazing at whatever you do." That was Sunday. Everything was still okay. Monday morning, I got to the office at 7:15 like always. I made coffee, I checked the schedule, I reviewed the day's meetings. Derek had sent me an email the night before saying he wanted to talk about a special project when he got back from Cabo. Said it would be a great opportunity for me. I was already imagining what it might be. Maybe a new client division? Maybe he wanted me to help with strategic planning? Around 9 o'clock, Derek called me into his office. This was normal. He called me in probably 3 times a week to discuss office logistics, client feedback, staffing issues, the day-to-day machinery of running a business. "Jenny, close the door," he said. He never called me Jenny. He called me Jennifer, or sometimes Jen. I closed the door. My stomach did a small flip, but I told myself I was being paranoid. "I need to talk to you about something sensitive," Derek said. He was sitting behind his desk, and he looked tired. He looked like he hadn't slept well. "How long have you been with the company?" 8 years, I said. You know that. Right, 8 years. You've been a great employee, Jennifer. Really great. He paused. He was choosing his words carefully, which was unusual for Derek. Derek was usually direct, sometimes brutally so. But I've been thinking about the structure of this office, and I've decided I need to bring in someone new, someone to help with management and operations. My heart sank. Not because I thought I was being fired. I wasn't worried about that. I sank because I understood immediately that whatever director position he'd hinted at was gone. "Oh," I said. "Okay, what kind of role?" "Operations manager," he said. "Someone to handle the day-to-day stuff, scheduling, vendor relationships, that sort of thing." That was my job. That was literally my job. "I see," I said carefully. Are you replacing me?" No. You'd move more into client relations like we talked about. Work directly with our big accounts, help with strategy. It's actually a step up for you. More visible work, more client-facing. But that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to run things. I wanted to manage people and systems and processes. That's where I was good. That's where I felt competent. "Who is this person?" I asked. Derek hesitated. "His name is Marcus. He's a friend of a friend. He just left the Marines and he's looking for a civilian position. I think he'd be good for us. Fresh perspective, you know? Strong leadership background." A Marine. Derek was hiring a Marine with no business experience to manage my office. "Derek, I don't understand," I said, and I could hear my voice getting tight. "Why would you bring someone in from outside when I'm already doing that work?" "Because I think you have more potential than this," he said, and there was something in his tone that made me feel small. "And because I want to try a new approach. You've been doing this job for 8 years, and maybe you're burned out. Maybe you need something different." I wasn't burned out. I loved my job. I loved the people. I loved the structure and the control and knowing that things would run smoothly because I made them run smoothly. "When does he start?" I asked. "This Friday. I want you to train him on the systems, introduce him to the staff, make sure he understands how we operate." I left his office feeling like I'd been punched. Friday morning, Marcus walked in at 8 o'clock sharp, wearing jeans and a black polo shirt with the Ashton & Associates logo already embroidered on it. Derek must have ordered it for him before even telling me. He shook hands with everyone, smiled a lot, asked about their weekends. By noon, people were already calling him Sir without even realizing it. I spent that entire first week training him on our systems, the client database, the project management software, the vendor contacts, the billing procedures, everything I'd built and refined over 8 years. He took notes in a leather notebook, asked methodical questions, and never once thanked me for my time. By Friday, he was reorganizing the break room. By the following Monday, he'd changed the meeting schedule. "Morning stand-ups at 7:45, he announced. "Everyone here, every single day. No exceptions. We need better communication." Monica raised her hand. "Some of us have kids to drop off at school." "Then get up earlier," Marcus said. It wasn't cruel, it was just factual. Like he was explaining basic physics to someone who should already understand it. Derek never came back from Cabo. He extended his trip, then extended it again. I called him 3 times. He didn't answer. His assistant, Karen, told me he was very busy with client meetings and would be back soon. The fourth time I called, she didn't pick up at all. 2 weeks into Marcus's reign, I noticed something. The office felt different, tighter. People weren't laughing in the break room anymore. Sarah, who used to bring in homemade cookies every Friday, stopped coming in at all. She called in sick on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I texted her to check in. She didn't respond. "Sarah's not a good fit for our new culture," Marcus told me when I asked about her absence. We were standing in his office, my old office basically, though he'd rearranged everything. My plants were gone. My framed photos of the team were off the walls. "She's been underperforming. I'm going to let her go next week." "She has anxiety," I said. "She's a good employee. She needs to figure out how to do her job without drama," Marcus interrupted. "Jennifer, I respect what you've built here, but this place wasn't running like a real business. It was running like a social club. That changes now." I felt my face get hot. "You can't just—" "I can, actually. Derek gave me complete operational authority for 30 days. Check your email. He sent the memo from Cabo." He had. I checked my phone. There it was, time-stamped 2:47 a.m., Cabo time. Probably while Derek was drunk by a pool. Effective immediately, Marcus has full decision-making authority over all office operations, staffing, and procedures. Jennifer, please cooperate fully with any requests. That was when I understood. Derek hadn't extended his trip because of clients. He'd done it because he knew what was coming, and he didn't want to be here to see it. Over the next week, Marcus fired Sarah. Then he fired James in accounts, said we were consolidating financial responsibilities. Then he fired Monica. The reason he gave her was vague, restructuring. But I knew. Monica had asked about working from home 2 days a week because her mom was sick. Marcus had said no. 3 days later, she was gone. The office went from 23 people to 19 in 10 days. I watched this happen and I did nothing. I told myself it wasn't my place anymore. I told myself Derek had made his choice. I told myself that maybe I was burned out, like Derek had suggested, and maybe a fresh perspective was what we needed. But that was a lie, and I knew it. Brandon noticed something was wrong. We were at dinner on Wednesday night, this little Italian place we like near my condo, and he reached across the table and took my hand. "Talk to me," he said. "You've been somewhere else all week." I told him everything. About Marcus, about the firings, about Derek hiding in Mexico, about how the office I'd spent 8 years building was being dismantled in real time. "That's insane," Brandon said. "Why is Derek letting this happen?" "Because he doesn't have to do anything," I said bitterly. "That's the whole point. Marcus is doing the dirty work, and Derek gets to come back in 30 days to a leaner operation without having to fire anyone himself. It's cowardly." "What are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. I was the office manager. I wasn't the owner. I wasn't even officially Marcus's equal anymore. I was just someone who knew how things worked. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to a sleeping Brandon and thought about all the people I'd hired, all the people I'd trained, all the relationships I'd built. Sarah, who'd told me 3 months ago that this job had changed her life because I'd given her the flexibility to see a therapist every Tuesday. James, who'd been saving for his daughter's college fund. Monica, whose ex-husband had been fighting her for custody and who needed stable income to prove to the court that she could provide. And then I thought about something else. I thought about the client files. I got up and went to my home office. I opened my laptop and pulled up the shared drive. Everything was still there. Every contract, every invoice, every communication with our clients. And buried in that archive were things that didn't add up. I started scrolling through the billing records, and that's when I found it. There was a pattern in the invoices Derek had sent out over the last 6 months. Inflated hours, duplicate charges, services that didn't match the contract terms. I'd never paid attention to the actual numbers before. That was Derek's domain. But now that I was looking, I could see it. Tens of thousands of dollars in overbilling. My hands started shaking. I pulled the contracts. I pulled the actual timesheets. I cross-referenced them with the invoices. The math didn't work. Not even close. Derek had been systematically overbilling clients. And when I looked at the dates, the biggest discrepancies started 6 months ago. Right around the time he'd mentioned wanting to take a vacation and refresh his perspective. He was stealing from our clients. And he'd brought Marcus in not to improve the office, but to create a distraction, to create chaos, to get people focused on the cuts and the new procedures so that nobody would notice what was happening in the numbers. I called Lisa. It was 2 a.m, and I called my sister like the world was on fire. "What is happening?" she said, her voice groggy. "Are you okay?" "No," I said. "No, I don't think I am. I need to tell you something, and I need you to tell me if I'm crazy." I walked her through it, all of it. The overbilling, the timeline, the pattern. By the time I finished, I could hear her sitting up in bed. "Jennifer, that's fraud," she said quietly. "You know that, right? That's literally fraud." "I know." "You need to talk to a lawyer." "I know." "Like, today. You need to call someone today." I called the office at 6 a.m. and told Marcus I was taking a sick day. My hands were still shaking. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table and pulled up the Colorado Bar Association website. I found 3 attorneys who specialized in employment law and whistleblower protections. The first one could see me at 9. His name was Richard Callahan, and his office was in a building downtown that smelled like old leather and furniture polish. He was maybe 60, with gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. He listened to everything I said without interrupting, and when I finished, he asked me one question. "Did you participate in any of this billing?" "No," I said firmly. "I had nothing to do with it. I didn't even know it was happening." "Good," he said. "That's important. And you have documentation?" "Everything's on the shared drive. I have access to all of it." He leaned back in his chair. "Here's what I think is happening. Your boss brought in this Marine to create operational chaos. It's actually a pretty smart strategy from a fraud perspective. Everyone's focused on the firings, the new procedures, the restructuring. Meanwhile, the financial irregularities go unnoticed. If you hadn't been digging through the archives, you probably wouldn't have found it for another 6 months, if ever." "What do I do?" "That depends on what you want," he said. "You can go to Derek directly and confront him. You can go to the clients and tell them what's happening. Or you can contact the Colorado Attorney General's office and file a complaint. There's also the FBI, but that's overkill unless there's interstate fraud involved." "What would you do?" He smiled slightly. "I'm not allowed to tell you that. But I can tell you that if you go the official route, Attorney General, FBI, whatever, you're protected from retaliation. There are whistleblower laws specifically designed for situations like this. Your job is protected. And if they fire you anyway, you have a case." I left his office feeling like something had shifted. I had options now. I had agency. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I didn't go to Derek. I didn't go to the clients. Instead, I went to Marcus. I knocked on his office door at 3 o'clock. He was reading something on his computer, and he looked up with that same neutral expression he always had. "Jennifer, come in." "I need to talk to you about something," I said. "Off the record." He closed his laptop. "Okay." I told him about the overbilling. I showed him the documents I'd printed out, the contracts, the timesheets, the invoices. I watched his face as he read through them. For the first time since he'd arrived, I saw a crack in his composure. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed. "How long have you known about this?" he asked. "Since last night." "And you came to me instead of Derek?" "Yes." He was quiet for a long moment. Why? That was a good question. Why had I come to him? Marcus had dismantled my office. He'd fired people I cared about. He'd reorganized everything I'd built. But looking at him now, I realized something. Marcus wasn't the villain here. Marcus was just the tool. Derek was the villain. Because I think you should know that you're being used, I said. Derek hired you to create a distraction, to get everyone focused on the changes so that nobody would notice what he was doing with the money. And I think maybe you're not the kind of person who likes being used. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at South Santa Fe Drive for a long time without saying anything. Then he turned back to me. I got out of the Marines because I was tired of being part of a system I didn't believe in, he said. I thought civilian work would be different, cleaner. He paused. Thank you for telling me this. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning, he said. My job. The next morning, Derek came back from Cabo. He walked into the office at 9 o'clock, tan and relaxed, carrying a coffee from the place downstairs. He was whistling. I watched him head toward his office, and I watched Marcus step out from the break room and intercept him. I couldn't hear what they said, but I could see Derek's face go pale. I saw Marcus hand him a folder. I saw Derek open it, and I saw his entire body go rigid. Then Derek was walking toward me. His coffee was forgotten on a nearby desk. His tan couldn't hide how white his face had become. My office, he said quietly. Now. I followed him. Marcus followed us both. What the hell is this? Derek demanded, holding up the folder. His hand was shaking. Where did you get this? From our files, Marcus said calmly. The files Jennifer gave me access to. These are your invoices, Derek, and these are the contracts that correspond to them. The math doesn't work. Not even close. This is a misunderstanding, Derek said. His voice had changed. It was no longer the voice of someone in control. It was the voice of someone drowning. There are accounting practices that are fraud, Marcus finished. Yeah. There are, and I'm going to need you to explain them to me. All of them. And then we're going to have a conversation about what happens next. Derek looked at me. For a second, I saw something like understanding cross his face. He finally got it. He'd brought in someone incorruptible, someone with a military background and an actual moral code, thinking that Marcus would just be a tool for restructuring the office. But he'd miscalculated. Marcus wasn't the kind of person you could use. Jennifer, Derek said, and his voice was almost pleading, you don't have to do this. Actually, I do, I said quietly. Those people you fired? Sarah needed this job. James needed this job. Monica needed this job. You took money from our clients to pay for your vacation, and then you brought in someone to create chaos so nobody would notice. That's not just fraud, Derek. That's cowardice. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling the Colorado Attorney General's office, he said. Right now. Jennifer, you should probably call that lawyer of yours. Everything after that happened very quickly. The Attorney General's office opened an investigation. The FBI got involved because some of the clients were out of state. Derek hired his own lawyer who advised him to cooperate. The firm was put under investigation. All of Derek's personal accounts were frozen pending the outcome. But here's the thing that nobody expected. Marcus stayed. The investigation took 2 months. By the end, Derek had agreed to a settlement with the clients, to restitution payments, and to never holding a business license in Colorado again. The firm wasn't shut down. There was no criminal prosecution, just civil penalties. Derek's lawyer had negotiated a deal that kept him out of prison in exchange for full cooperation and significant financial repayment. But Derek was gone, finished, toxic. No client would ever trust him again. The office had to rebuild. And Marcus, who I'd resented so deeply, who I'd blamed for everything, became the person who actually did the rebuilding the right way. He hired Sarah back first, then James. Then he worked out a schedule with Monica that let her take Tuesdays off for her mom's medical appointments. He raised everyone's salary by 15% across the board. He kept the morning stand-ups, but he also kept the coffee machine I'd bought, and he apologized to people for how the transition had been handled. I was following orders, he told the staff at an all-hands meeting, but I should have questioned those orders. I should have asked more questions. I'm sorry for how this went down. It took me a while to trust him after that, but eventually I did. We became good colleagues. More than that, we became friends. He understood something about the difference between authority and leadership, something that Derek never had. Brandon asked me to move in with him 6 months later. We found a place in Washington Park, a 2-bedroom condo with a little balcony. Lisa helped us paint the bedroom. My dad came by to assemble furniture. It felt right in a way that I hadn't expected. And on my last day as office manager, because Marcus promoted me to director of client relations, a real promotion with actual authority and a 20% raise, he took me out to lunch. "You know why Derek really brought me in?" Marcus asked, stirring his coffee. I asked him about it after everything fell apart. "Why?" I said. "Because he thought I was the kind of person who would do whatever he told me to do," Marcus said. "He thought that my military background meant I didn't ask questions, that I just followed orders. He was wrong about that. That's not what the military teaches you. It teaches you that you're responsible for your own choices, and I chose not to be part of his scheme." "I'm glad you did," I said. "Me too," he said. "And for what it's worth, I'm glad you found the evidence. I could have gone along forever, thinking I was just doing a job. You gave me the chance to do the right thing. That matters." We clinked glasses, and I realized something sitting there across from him. The worst thing that happened to me had actually been the best thing. It had forced me to pay attention. It had forced me to act. It had shown me that I had more power than I'd thought. Derek's fraud was the catalyst, but my decision to investigate it, to confront it, to bring it to light, that was mine, and nobody could ever take that away from me. 6 months after that, Derek left Colorado. He moved to Arizona, and I heard through Lisa that he'd gotten divorced. His ex-wife took most of the settlement money in the divorce proceedings. I don't know what happened to him after that, and I stopped caring. The office thrived. We brought in new clients. We expanded to 28 employees. Marcus eventually left to start his own consulting firm, helping small businesses establish ethical practices. But before he left, he took me to lunch one more time. "You saved this company," he told me. "You know that, right?" "We both did," I said. "No," he said firmly. "You did. You had the courage to look at the evidence, to understand what it meant, and to act on it. That's rare. Most people would have just quit. But you didn't. You stayed, and you fought." I thought about that a lot after he left. I thought about Derek, and about how easily I could have just let it all go. I thought about Sarah, and James, and Monica, and how different their lives would have been if I'd decided that it wasn't my problem. But it was my problem. It was my office. It was my responsibility. 2 years later, I was promoted to vice president of operations for the entire firm. Brandon and I got engaged. Lisa was my maid of honor. My dad walked me down the aisle at a beautiful ceremony in Cherry Creek Park. And on the morning of my wedding, before everything got crazy, I sat in my childhood bedroom in my mother's house and looked at my reflection in the mirror. I looked happy. I looked like someone who'd fought for something and won. That's the version of myself I'd earned, and that's the one I got to keep.